Hi, my name is Suraj Gunwant and I'm a PhD research scholar at the Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, India. I'm going to present a paper titled Masculinity and the Novel, a study of the God of Small Things. This paper has been co-authored by Dr. Rashmi Gaur, Professor, IIT, Roorkee, India. Well, to begin with, I would like to discuss the objective of this study. The objective of this study is to investigate how gendered identities are created in the chosen text, which is the God of Small Things, with specific relation to the construction of male subjectivities. The idea is to read the text closely with the motive to write a critical and narrative delineation of the conception of male characters, to see how the text engages with the construction of masculine ideals and whether or not it subverts oppressive subjectivities. Well, before I move ahead with the analysis of the text, I would like to give a brief overview of masculinity studies. Over the last 2 decades, this study of masculinity has emerged as a vibrant field which intends to contest the reductive, essentialist, and monolithic idea of masculinity that has been prevalent in most cultures for centuries. Feminism, especially academic feminism, helped in bringing forth the idea that there was no inherent one-way causality between sex and gender. It was not sex that determined gender. Rather, the construction of gender was nothing but a socio-cultural phenomenon. But somehow the debate centered around the construction of femininity as a gender and delineated as to how the discourse around gendered identities of females led to their oppression. So, masculinity studies is essentially a study of men, which would help us trace the trajectory of how the shaping of male subjectivities is also more in the existing patriarchal structure of the society, which binds men into certain rigid codes which not only oppresses them, but also naturalizes or systemizes female oppression. It is a vibrant interdisciplinary field of study which is broadly concerned with the social construction of what it means to be a man. It also critiques the binary opposition between the qualities that are generally associated with masculinity and femininity. The scholars of this area study the social role and meanings of masculinities. They also study cultural constructions of masculinity by engaging with cultural productions with a special emphasis on mass culture. In fact, the paper that is being read is also about cultural constructions of masculinity. Apart from that, this area also deals with the diversity of identities. It deals with behaviors and meanings that occupy the label masculine and does not assume that they are universal. Some important texts that have shaped this study, some critical texts, include Reverend Connell's Masculinities 1995, which brought about a shift in the study of masculinity with the argument that masculinity is not a monolithic concept. His next book, The Men and the Boys, which was published in the year 2001, reveals the price men and boys across cultures pay for patriarchy. So this book, The Men and the Boys, went against the notion that patriarchy is biased toward men. Men's Lives by Michael Connell is organized around themes that define masculinity and discusses how gendering as a process, like in the case of women, is central to men. So, women are not the only human beings that are gendered. Masculinity Studies in Feminist Theory by Judith Keegan Gardner examines the ways in which male privilege are constituted and represented and explores the effects of construction. Another important book is The Image of Men, The Creation of Modern Masculinity, which was published in the year 1996 by George L. Mose, depicts or talks about the dominant masculine stereotype and the manly ideal perception. So here is a very brief introduction to the author. The author's name is Arundhati Roy, who was born in Shillong in 1961, and this Shillong is a place in India. She was born to a Keralite Syrian mother and a Bengali Hindu father. She received the Man Booker Prize for the book which is being discussed in this paper, The God of Small Things, in the year 1997, and she has been writing a lot of non-fiction after the Booker Prize winning fiction. She has some of the major works that she has written after The God of Small Things are the Algebra of Infinite Justice, which was published in the year 2002, then Power Politics and An Ordinary Person's Guide to Empire, Listening to Grasshoppers, Field Notes on Democracy 2010. So after a brief introduction to the author, let me introduce the text. The name of the text is The God of Small Things, and the story of this book is a multi-layered narrative dealing with several issues like the oppressive caste system, rigid social structures, and family matters. The God of Small Things revolves around a family in Kerala and has several key characters like Amu, Rahel, Esther, Chacko, Baby Kuchuma, Mamaji, etc. This novel tells the story of Esther and Rahel, the twins of Amu in Imanam, Kerala. In fact, the novel begins with the description of the place it is set in. May in Imanam is a hot, brooding month. Told from the point of view of Rahel, the girl among the twins, the story uses Rahel's memories to continuously move back and forth, creating a sense of mystery. When the narration goes back in time, it brings forth the pivotal death of Sophie Mole, daughter of Chacko, the maternal uncle of Rahel and Esther. The drowning of Sophie Mole, who comes to visit her father, a divorcee, is a major life-changing, life-shaping event for many other characters. Using verbal linguistic jugglery, the story gradually unfolds a tragic denouement. Now, the analysis of the novel. The novel does not deliberately set out to engage in or make any explicit proclamations on masculinity. However, the dynamics of gender can be read by using the method of close textual analysis. A close reading of the male characters, their predicaments in the novel, help the reader grasp the presence of hegemonic and non-hegemonic patterns of masculinities. It also helps in delineating how the author has attempted to subvert traditional or hegemonic male-gendered identities. The novel shows how masculinity as a notion is not a monolith. The notion of masculinities can be seen in the plural. Within this plurality, there is a hierarchy in which different models of manhood jostle for space. Power is shared not uniformly, but that the relations are asymmetrical among all the male characters. For example, Velutha. Velutha, on account of being a Paravan, a low caste, has been shown powerless and is also an embodiment of non-hegemonic manhood. In a multi-religious, multi-language and multi-ethnic country like India, one's affiliation to different axes of identity determines where one would be perceived in the power order. Roy has dealt with the power struggle among variants of manhood by using characters that belong to different strata of the society. The amorous tale of Velutha and Amu comes to an abrupt end with the brutal killing of Velutha, an incident which was a clinical demonstration in controlled conditions of human nature's pursuit of ascendancy, structure, order, complete monopoly. Page number 309 from the God of Small Things. Another quotation from the novel that supports this argument goes like this: feelings of contempt born of inchoate, unacknowledged fear, civilization's fear of nature, men's fear of women, power's fear of powerlessness, man's subliminal urge to destroy what he could neither subdue nor deify, men's needs. A close reading of these two quotations from the text, it can be inferred that Velutha, on account of being a low caste, was powerless before a system of power which is hierarchical in nature, a rigid system of values which Roy has frequently referred to as the big god. It is this big god that seeks obeisance from Velutha, the small god. In contrast to this, the description of Velutha's body follows normative standards. Here, I would like to quote one line from page number 334. As she watched him, she understood the quality of his beauty, how his labor had shaped him, how the wood he fashioned had fashioned him. Each plank he planed, each nail he drove, each thing he made had molded him, had left its stamp on him, had given him his strength, his supple grace. The author further writes, she saw the ridges of muscle on Velutha's stomach grow taut and rise under his skin like the divisions on a slab of chocolate. She wondered at how his body had changed so quietly from a flat muscled boy's body into a man's body, contoured and hard, a swimmer's body, a swimmer carpenter's body, polished with a high wax body polish. Page number 175. So, while the writer subverts the power hegemony of traditional masculinity with Velutha being one of the central characters and the love interest of Amu, however, at the same time, Roy does not cease from giving Velutha an alpha male body. Chacko, on the other hand, represents another model which wields power and at the same time feigns to resist it. Chacko has been shown to have left-wing leanings, but is also the owner of the pickle factory and resists the communist movement which threatened to overthrow his ownership. His first wife, Margaret Kochama, divorced him for Joe, who was everything that Chacko wasn't. Steady, solvent. Page number 248. Chacko is a complex character who doesn't show any sense of competitiveness or responsibility, which is an essential component of traditional model of masculinity. This is why, and I quote, by the time Sophie Mole was born, Margaret Kochoma realized that for herself and her daughter's sake, she had to leave Chacko. Page number 248. In addition to this, Chacko meets different treatment from his family members in Imanim. Chacko is given the opportunity to study at Oxford, while Amu goes to a local college to complete a degree in architecture. Apart from that, Chacko's sexual needs are also recognized in the Imanim household. Mamaji, for example, Chacko's mother, was aware of his libertine relationships with the women in the factory, but had ceased to be hurt by them. Surprisingly, Baby Kochama accepted this explanation, and the enigmatic, secretly threatening notion of men's needs gained implicit sanction in the Eminem house. Chacko has been shown to possess power and be powerless at the same time, which puts the character in a grey area. His sexual voraciousness, which has been sanctioned by his family and extendedly the society, falls under concept of hegemonic masculinity. Sexual mania, as opposed to a sexual depression, is a marker of traditional masculinity, and Chacko in no way resists that. If being a man, that is, being at the upper echelons in the hierarchy of masculinity, involves the use of violence against a person of one's own sex or of the opposite sex, then Papachi's character comes to the fore. Papachi is extremely violent. He is also ill at ease with his wife Mamachi's success at learning violin. So the lessons were abruptly discontinued when Mamachi's teacher made the mistake of telling Papachi that his wife was exceptionally talented and, in his opinion, potentially concert class. This is a quotation from page number 227. Papachi's indiscriminate violence against Mamachi and his obsession with binding his wife to the private sphere of home, where he stops her from becoming a concert class violinist, is patriarchy's way of creating oppressive male gender subjectivities, or a mode of male conduct which are considered aspirational for all human beings in belonging to the male sex, and thrive on total dominance of their female counterparts, as well as men from lower age, class and caste background. This allows men who follow the rigid code of masculinity to have power over others. Papachi also wishes to dominate the public sphere, as he donated money to orphanages and leprosy clinic. He worked hard on his public profile as a sophisticated, generous, moral man. Having noticed that, it is important to point out that the novel in no way glorifies Papachi, and hence the text actively subverts those patterns that are oppressive. Conclusion. In Roy's writing, a sense of continuity and rupture is found with regards to the conception of important male characters. The text vigorously and almost categorically denounces the actions and dispositions of Papachi and Chacko, thereby subverting many modes of conduct that are associated with traditional or hegemonic masculinity. However, Chacko's divorce from Margaret Kochama and the rationale behind the event of separation, and the narrator's obsession with Velutha's strength as it manifests in his body contours, informs the reader of the text's inability to do away with other extricable notions about normative masculinity. Thank you.